When I was an undergraduate, I was studying politics and history at the University of Manchester in England. And we had a very good teacher who was lecturing to us about Chinese politics and another one who was lecturing about Chinese history. But I was puzzled by what they were talking about, because in those days, in the 1960s, China's population was about 600 million. And I couldn't understand how they would talk about the Chinese doing this or the Chinese doing that when there were 600 million Chinese and they lived in a large area. So I thought there was too much generalization going on. So I thought, oh, I have to try and understand how this works. And that got my intellectual interest. So I decided to start looking at what things were like on the ground in China. And I've been doing that for over 50 years since. I went for my PhD, I went to London University and started by learning Chinese. And then I did a PhD on Sichuan province and how it developed. In those days, Chongqing was not a province, not a provincial level municipality. It was part of Sichuan. And then I went to Beida and I did some Marxist-Leninist political economy at Beida. And then I went back to teaching in the UK. And I've been doing China studies really ever since about 1968 and writing and doing research. I'm interested in local social change. That's what I work on. When I first went to China, not everybody spoke Chinese and not everybody spoke Putonghua. They spoke their local language. And sometimes they spoke Putonghua. But I remember the first time I went into a shop in China, in southern China, and tried to buy something, and I spoke Putonghua. The people didn't understand me. And for years I thought it was that I was a bad speaker of Chinese. And then I realized after a couple of years that wasn't the problem at all. They were Guangdongmen and they didn't speak Putonghua at all. Now, over the last 40 years, all that's changed. People now speak at least a variety of modern standard Chinese. Of course, modern standard Chinese, like English, English is said to be the world's language, but everybody speaks a different version of English in Australia, in America, in England, in Canada, and so on. Different words come in, different ways of expressing things. So it is with Chinese, with modern standard Chinese. It's hard. I don't like making big statements like this, because it goes against my inclination as an academic. But I will make some. One is, I think you should, as a foreigner, you should never underestimate the ability of the Chinese system to do the unexpected, to be successful, to bring people together, to mobilize and to do things. That has been a major thing I've noticed over the years. I mean, starting from a low base, it's true, China has become a major economic powerhouse. That is quite a phenomenal achievement. I remember in 1978, at the time of the third plenum, Santi, 11th Central Committee Santi, experts outside China looked at what was being planned in terms of doubling and redoubling GDP by the year 2000. And everybody, each one of them said, no, a nice goal, but it cannot be achieved. Well, actually, of course, it was achieved in 1995. And that's impressive, right? Very impressive. I think if you have a very large country with a lot of different subcultures, as China is, then you can do the kind of things that China has done. But there are not many countries in the world like this. And scale is very important for the success of the Chinese economy. So China has, in the last 40 years, traded a lot with the rest of the world. But if China decides or is forced not to trade with the rest of the world, then it has its own domestic market, which can sustain continued economic growth. So there's a big difference there between China and other countries, I think. Well, it's totally different because, to start off with, the scale of China is different. I mean, you take a province in China, that's the scale of a country anywhere else in the world, right? Shanghai's population is greater than the whole of Australia, right? So, we're talking about different things completely. Then what local government is required to do in a country like China is much more detailed in many ways than in Australia, for example, because of the way health and education and so on are organized. They're just absolutely not the same. So that's why it's so interesting. Now, what you've also got in China, of course, is a Communist Party state, which provides direction and government as well as everything else. So you have the ability for the state to be more involved in social activities. There is a belief in many countries outside China of the notion that the free market solves all problems, and that the poor are only poor because they're too lazy to work, and that is clearly not true. You need a strong market, but you equally need a strong state to ensure that when the inequalities created by the market need adjusting or need replacing, then they can do that. So, for example, let's take education or health. Government needs to provide basic health and education for everybody. If you left that to the market, as some countries do, then if you're not a wealthy country, you've got real problems. You're from Chongqing. What do you call a potato? How do you say potato in Chinese?
土豆.
Do you really say 土豆? You don't say yang yu or anything like that?
Yeah, 洋芋.
Yang yu. Yes. Do you know 土豆 in Chinese is sometimes 花生?
花生.
Yeah, peanut. Some parts of China, 土豆 means 花生, not potato.
Really?
Yes.
This is a big revelation to me.
Oh, you're joking. Well,
really? I don't know.
Let me assure you it's true. Linguistic variation of foods, of animals, of fruits, of plants is very high in China. Yeah, Shanyadan, right?
Yeah.
Is what they call a potato in Shanxi province, right? You can say 土豆, of course, but people say, you say 土豆, well, that means you're a whitey. You're from somewhere else.